Hello everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at CBSI Hot Top 10 from 6 months ago. This week we're going to be looking back at the Hot Top 10 from January 18th, 2019, and I am recording this on July 18th, 2019. This week's list, before we get into that, at some point, as of recording, I'm not sure exactly when we're going to do it, but this list represents exactly 6 months since I've been doing this Hot Top 10 look back. And I thought it'd be fun to kind of do a lessons learned show. So I'm going to do a live show on lessons learned. Highlight Comic Bro is going to join me. Maybe somebody else. We haven't got everybody lined up for sure yet. And not exactly sure what time, probably this weekend, but I'm recording this on Thursday, and we haven't got all the details locked down just yet. So, hopefully you will check that out when it goes out, and keep an eye on my channel, because that will be coming soon. But, this week's list was another cover-dominated week. About half the list were just strictly cover buys. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4... Yeah, half the list. There's a couple of keys that kind of spiked for spec news that you can debate whether or not it paid off or not. So let's get into the list and see what we were buying back in January. First up at number 10, and we're not going to do it, we're going to just show it to you, is the Ben Oliver variant to Catwoman number 7. Back then, everybody was like, this was the week after that Harley Quinn book jumped. Everybody thought this book would jump as well. It is a gorgeous cover. At least I think it is. So CBSI basically said that at week 1 it was going for 10 to 15. Although even they mentioned that everybody thought it was going to be more like 15 to 20 or 25. Just seemed to be a few more of the people caught on to this a little quicker than the Harley Quinn book, so it did not hold as well, or even out of the gate didn't go as high. So now this is a basically cover to $10 book, or cover plus shipping is really what it's going for. 9.8s on this can be had for $20 to $45. I guess I should continue to hold it up. So not a whole lot of value here in this cover. I mean, it's going for a little more than cover value, but it's not a whole lot of value on this one, although it is gorgeous. If I find a 9.8 already slab for $20, I might have to jump on that, just because. But so that is Catwoman number 7, the Ben Oliver variant. At number 9 on the list is Young Justice number 1, the Jorge Jimenez variant, and this is the Superboy meme cover. And so it's that meme that was going around last year, the guy with his girlfriend looking at another girl. Well, they did this cover for Superboy, or for Young Justice number 1 with Superboy. Right out of the gate, this was a $15 to $20 book. Another kind of hot cover right off the bat. Now this is another cover to $10 book. This one, the 9.8s are doing a little better, but not a lot of well, I say that, but the last 2 9.8 sales, one was 80, one was 38. So it has done a little better, but there's not nearly as many 9.8s of this cover out there as there was of that one, of the Catwoman cover. So it is holding a little more value for a 9.8. There's a ton of those Catwoman covers out there that are slabbed. But another cover that was cover of the moment that didn't really hold up long term, at least at this point. Maybe something later will do it, but I kind of doubt it unless there's something really important in that book. At number 8 on the list is Captain Marvel number 17, the second print. So this has hit the list a couple of different times since I've been doing this. And this is of course the second cameo of Kamala Khan, her first cover appearance. This has been a huge book, and back in January it was setting records again. An 8.5 went for a record of $411. A 9.6 went for a record of $900. And this book is basically kind of still hanging out in that same kind of range. Hasn't done another jump, it doesn't look like, recently. There hasn't really been any solid rumors about her in the MCU recently, although I think that's a matter of when, not if. 9/8 are currently going for 1,200 to almost 1,700. 9/6s are going 650 to 900, so still just a little lower than that 900 back in January, but it's still right in that range. Raw copies of this are pretty hard to find. Right now, there are no raw copies listed on eBay for sale. I've looked a couple of times. I don't think I'd ever seen raw copies listed on eBay the other times it hit the list. But this time there were actually 2 sales of raw copies in the last couple of months. One went for $225, and the other went for it was the best offer on $490. So don't know for sure what that one went for, but I'm guessing probably around $400. Like I said, there's none listed. The 9/8 are listed right in that range of where they've been selling in terms of slabs. Just a popular book, a character that's probably going to show up in the movies at some point, and I would say this book's probably going to just keep slowly climbing. At number 7 on the list, we have a repeat offender, and that is our Harley Quinn, number 57, the Tedesco variant. Made the list for a second week in a row. Last week, we talked about it in its first week being a $15, $20 book. By the second week that it was out, it was a $25 to $30 book. As we talked about last week, this book has fallen back. Not a lot, but it has fallen back some. It's more of a $10 to $20 book. Although most people are still asking $20 plus for raw copies. But there are a ton of these slabbed. Slabs are going for $50 to $60 on a $20 book. That's pretty cheap for a 9/8 slab. You spend $20, you spend 30 something to get it slabbed, and dang, if you don't get the 9/8, you're almost better off buying those 9/8s that are already made. Most people are still asking 60 to 70 for the 9/8s, but this is a book that can be had if you really want it in a 9/8 for a pretty decent price. At number 6 on the list, we have Mr. Miracle, number 6, and this is the first appearance of the female Furies. I think there was some rumors about a New Gods movie. There was also, they were getting their own series around this time. Don't believe people thought a whole lot of that series since then, but that was kind of those two factors were kind of like made this book jump. It basically jumped from a $10 to $20 book to a $40 to $50 book for raw copies. Now it is a little bit all over the place. It's basically $10 to $20 for most of the sales, but there's also some of the nicer copies are still bringing $40 to $50. Most of the books are listed in a $40 to $60 range. It's a little bit. There's also a little bit appears of what a auction goes for versus what a buy it now goes for, but and condition is also playing a factor into why there's a spread there. So it's still occasionally bringing that $40 to $50, which seems pretty reasonable for a book of this age, that's this level of a key. 9/6s are basically going for 200, a little over range. There's only been one 9/8 sale in the last couple of years, and it was just recently, and it went for $1,200. Just like back in June, it went for $1,200. But previous mark on Go Collect for this book was like $260 for a 9/8, but that was in like 2016. So not a lot to compare this to in terms of 9/8s. There's not very many on the census that high. 9/6s seem to be more of the more consistently available grade for this book, at least in terms of slabs. But a $200 book in a 9/6, anywhere from $10 to $50 for a raw copy, depending on your condition and how much you're wanting it. So it still held some of the value from that jump from the rumors. I think we now know that there is going to be a New Gods movie. We know that Tom King's writing it, so I think that's kind of sustained some of the value in terms of the female Fury's first appearance. At number 5 on the list, we have White Widow number 1, and this is purely another cover this is the main cover that I'm showing you here, and that's the one they talk about. This was a very popular Kickstarter. Jamie Tyndall was doing this White Widow thing. Obviously, it's a sexy lady on the cover. And there were basically a ton of different covers available through that Kickstarter program. Plus, with the actual release, there were several different covers. So there are a ton of covers of this thing out there. They basically said the regular cover right out of the gate was going for $30+ back in January. It was too many to try to figure out what all the others were going for at that time. But basically now this is a $10 to $20 book for the main cover, although there's not that many of them listed and available. There's a ton of White Widow #1s listed. There's just not necessarily that many of that particular cover. There's almost any cover you want, and almost all of them are going in that $10 to $20 range. There's a couple that are going for a little more than that, but for the most part, these White Widows can be had for $10 to $20, which is, when it was $30 out of the gate. But a 9.8 again is the main cover here is going for $40 to $60. A few of the other covers are a little higher than that, but for the most part, this book can be had for pretty cheap if you want it. I've heard the story on this isn't great. I haven't read it myself, so I won't say much more than that, but it appears to be kind of an art cover buy more than a content buy on this particular one. With that, let's move on to number 4 on the list, and this is Supernatural Thrillers number 8. And this is the first appearance of the Elementals. And basically this book spiked because of the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer dropped. And it showed the first trailer, I think, first teaser showed like some of the water stuff and people were specking on Hydro Man. This one showed that there would be a rock monster, as well as the water monster. So people were jumping all over them. Maybe we're going to get the Elementals. If it wasn't Sandman and Hydro Man, maybe it'd be the Elementals. And so this book jumped from basically a $10 to $15 book to a $50 to $100 book. If you haven't seen Far From Home, you might want to skip ahead a minute or so. But basically, we know that the Elementals sort of appeared in Far From Home. They're kind of being faked, I guess. They refer to them as Elementals, but it's really a Mysterio thing. But so anyway, this book is basically now the $20 to $50 book, although prices are really kind of all over the place on this, depending on condition and whether or not the Marvel value stamp is in the book. That is important. There's a lot of books that are listed with the value stamp and without it, nearly the same price. It's only slightly different conditions. So I'd just be selective and kind of search through a bunch of them to try to find the best deal, because they're selling kind of all over the place in the $20 to $50 range. They're listed literally 20 to 100 plus listings for raw books. So the listings are all over the place depending on condition and the value stamp. This is one that if you really want this book, I would just really do your research on it. The 9.6s are basically been going like 9.6 sale. Okay, sorry. 9.8 sales. There was a $300 one in December, which was before that trailer dropped. After the trailer dropped, there's only been 2 other 9.8 sales. One in April for $750, one in May for $840. None since the movie came out. The only one listed currently at a 9.8 is listed for they're listed for 1,000. There was 2 of them, and then a 9.6 recently since the movie came out went for $235. So this book is, first appearance of the Elementals, has a little bit of value, but it's a little all over the place. I'd be pretty selective about picking this up. You could argue whether or not these characters actually appeared in the movie or not. But that is Supernatural Thrillers number 8. Next up in number 3 is another Far From Home spec book, and that is Amazing Spider-Man number 212. First Hydro Man. Back then, raw copies were going for $50 to $60. 9.8s were going for $400-ish range. 9.6s, $150 to $200. Now, since the movie came out, raw copies are down to $20 to $30 range, although they're still listed $20 to $60. 9/8, since the movie came out, instead of selling for $300 to $400, are selling for $200 to $250. 9/6s, instead of that $150 to plus range, are selling for $100 or so. So that is most of the listings on the graded books are still kind of at the old prices from before the movie came out. Again, that was ASM 212. I think I kind of warned some people early on. This book has hit the list a couple different times that they were probably messing with us on Hydro Man, and that appears to have been the case. You can make the argument it was the Elementals, but it wasn't Hydro Man. At number 2 on the list is 5 Ronin, number 4. The David Aja, I don't know how you pronounce that for sure, AJA cover. This is interesting just because you'll find it listed on eBay almost every time as a variant. This is actually the main cover. So there is a variant, but this is actually the main cover, but it is also the one that has the value. This is just a cover buy. This is just a gorgeous cover on a low print book. Basically, back then it jumped from $25 to $50 and then jumped to $80 for raw copies. Now there's only 3 currently listed on eBay, and they're all listed for $1 to $115. However, sales have all been on best offer accepted on books that were listed for $60 to $70. So not one of the eBay books I looked at actually had the sale price there for a raw book. It was all somebody accepted a best offer on a listing of $60 to $70. So those guys that currently have them listed for $100 aren't really in the price range of what people have been paying. There've been 298. There's only been 298 sales ever, in the last year or so. Excuse me, not ever, but last year or so. November, one went for $165, and then in January one went for $200. But there's been no recent one, and there are no current slabs listed on eBay for this book. It's just a gorgeous cover. People like it. I think it's a low print run book that's driving this here, and so. But it is the main, despite what people say about it being the variant. And last but not least is some more Marvel Cinematic Universe spec, and that was Young Avengers number 1. Basically, there were rumors that there was going to be a Young Avengers movie. Caused this book to jump kind of through the roof a little bit. It basically went from a $10 to $20 book to a $50 to $60 book. Now raw copies have come back somewhat. They're more in the $25 to $50 range, although most are selling more $25 to $35, but there have been a couple that have still going for around $50. 9/8s are going for $200 to $250. So this book has continued to have some value. My guess is at some point some of these characters are definitely going to show up in the MCU, so it'll probably spike again. So now might not be a bad time if you really want this book to try to get in on it. It's a little more reasonably priced than it was back in January. So that is the list for this week. Again, we had 5 books that were strictly covers. The Ronin number 5 Ronin has mostly maintained the value it was at when it hit the list. The other 4 have three of them, Catwoman, Young Justice, and White Widow, have dropped back considerably. Harley is still doing okay, that Harley 57, but she has come back a little bit as well. We had some spec related to Spiderman. Those books have come back a little bit. Young Avengers spec also has come back a little bit. And Mr. Miracle number 6, The Female Furies, that has come back some, but it, like I said, that book's a little all over the place, so it's hard to know exactly what's going on there. So that's our list for this week. I want to thank you guys all for joining me. As I said at the beginning of the video, sometime, hopefully this weekend, I'm going to try to do a look back at the look backs. What have we learned from 6 months of doing this? I don't know the time or date yet, but I will try to let you guys know. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you next time.